Good afternoon. Welcome. It's July 25th, 2025. We are having a special council meeting. Hope everybody's getting ready for a great Friday weekend. Do we have any public comments?
No, ma'am.
Excellent. Can you please lead in the invocation, Mr. Wright?
Let's pray. Heavenly Father, thank you for this beautiful day that you've given us. Lord, I thank you for this great city that we live in. Lord, I ask that you help us to be good stewards of what we're blessed with. Lord, give us wisdom when it comes to making decisions that comes to the city. Lord, I thank you for this council. I thank you for the staff that are here. And Lord, I ask that you just bless our city and Lord, just help us to continue to do things that are in your will. In your name we pray. Amen.
Thank you. Vice Mayor President, please lead in the pledge.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Can I get a roll call?
Yes, ma'am. Vice Mayor Cussler.
Here.
Councilman Welch. Here. Mayor Rodenwald.
Here.
Councilman Lewandowski.
Here.
And let the record reflect that Councilman Knight is unavailable today. I believe he's traveling.
Okay.
And it was just short notice.
Yeah.
And I do appreciate the city council being available.
Thank you so much.
I'll leave this over.
Alrighty, so on our agenda, we have an action item is to estimate the tentative property tax rate, the millage rate. And we have been provided some information per Jamie on kind of what we're trying to do here is to decide whether to set a proposed property tax rate or the millage rate submission to the property appraiser. We have a very specific schedule that we have to follow, and I'm going to lead it over to you, Jamie.
Yes, ma'am.
To guide us.
So Rich Commander wasn't available today, but he called me ahead of the meeting. He's in another legal proceeding. And he just said, hey, just make sure everybody understands what we're doing today is setting the maximum millage rate. Very simply, the maximum millage rate that the city may set in this process. And I probably haven't been using that cleanest term, but that's really what it is. We're going to go in no later than the 4th of August, and in the truth in millage or trim system for the state, the computer system is called OASIS. We're going to put a millage rate, a property tax rate into that system that's going to be the maximum that the city council will be able to consider throughout the rest of the budgeting cycle. And so that rate, that rate can be anywhere from 10 all the way down that the city council can choose from. The maximum that the city can choose, a municipality in the state of Florida can set in the state is 10, is the highest millage. So what I'm going to do real quick, I'm going to call through the schedule that we discussed in the budgeting committee earlier this week. That way it'll give the council members a chance to kind of look at that, see if they have any impacts, or they can take that back, come back and let us know as far as availability. As I recall, Mayor and Councilman Lewandowski are both available for this schedule. We'll make a decision today on the proposed or maximum millage rate. No later than the 4th of August, I already told you we'll set that in the system. What happens in August is then a trim notice will be issued by the county. And it's going to say, for the county and for the city of Keystone Heights, here's the maximum millage rate that the city set. And it'll say, here's, likely it'll have a number that says, here's what the maximum tax receipts for the city under that rate are.
And it calls it a maximum?
I'd have to see what the trim notice actually looks like, but that's effectively what it's saying. But
I understand. You and I were talking about communication and perception.
Right, absolutely.
Earlier, and that was my,
Yes.
point about making sure that people understand what that means.
Correct. So I'll also state, so when I say that, that's going to get published in the newspaper, and the rate that is chosen today by the council goes in the newspaper as, it goes out there and people see it. So there could be a perception from that as to what the council's doing. just be aware of it, but it does get published. It's not just gonna go in a computer system and sit. It drives a public announcement as far as part of the truth in millage process. So then what we do on the 18th of September is where our current plan is to have a public hearing on the tentative budget and the proposed budget property tax rate. And then, and the mayor, I believe, is not available for that meeting. On the 25th of September, which is a Thursday, we'll go in and we're required to advertise basically what is going before the council in the next meeting to be adopted. And so we have to advertise that within 15 days of the first, we call it the first reading, the first discussion on the tentative. We'll have to advertise it within 15 days. This date meets that. And then within 5 days of advertising that meeting, you've got to have the second meeting. And so that's why on the 29th of September, or Monday the 29th, we plan to have the special meeting for a public hearing on the formal adoption of the property tax rate and the budget for fiscal year 25-26. So now I'll go down lower and I'll make some changes to what I've written in here. My recommendation for the council to make a motion on today and to set the what I call the neutral property rate, use the previous year's tax rate, millage rate, at 3.8847. I like to round things, the 3.9 rate, with $409,029 in projected property tax revenue. That is based on a taxable property value that we received from the property appraiser and this is, if you'll see a little spreadsheet that I put on each of your tables, that property value received from the property appraiser at the beginning of July is $105,163,939. So that is what the property appraiser says the current value of the property within the city of Keystone Heights currently is. And so that's what we apply the millage rate to. So all the multiplication goes off that number, $105 million.
Which form is that?
I'm sorry, the number is in the spreadsheet right up at the top. It says property value.
That's the total assessed value of all the,
Property in the city of Keystone Heights.
Okay.
including commercial property, or just
My understanding is all of it.
taxable property?
Taxable property.
Okay, yeah, I see how you did that.
So as we talked about, and this is, Rich corrected me on this, the city council can consider anywhere from 10 on down. And so we go back, the other option could be go into the rollback rate, which would be roughly 3.5965. I like to round it, just call it 3.6, with a projected income of $378,684 in property tax revenue. Now that number is roughly the same as the property tax income that we are currently operating in this fiscal year's budget. That's where the term the rollback rate comes from. I'll go back to setting the neutral rate or using last year's rate. In an environment or an economic environment where property values are increasing, if you run the calculation, if you set the neutral rate or use the previous year's rate, you're going to show an increased property tax revenue for that year over the previous year. And so that is, by the state of Florida, considered a tax increase because the state of Florida sees the number of dollars that a citizen pays is that goes up, that's a tax increase. Even though if you use the neutral rate, the previous year's rate, the rate would stay the same, the number of dollars would go up. If you set the rollback rate, that is basically instead of using the same rate from the previous year, you're targeting the same property tax dollars revenue coming into the city. That would be it's always going to come out, if it's in an increasing economic environment, that rate is going to be a lower rate. In this current year, we believe that's going to be around 3.5965 or 3.6 would be the rollback rate as we look into the fiscal year. If you look at the impacts of that, it would be a difference between the two rates of about $31,000 or about $52 per household. So you would, the household, if we set the rolled back rate, would pay $52 less. Another way of looking at it, if we set the neutral rate or we use the previous year's rate, an average property owner would pay $52 more in the coming fiscal year using the previous year's rate. And then the last option, and I'm actually going to, let's see, I think these two talked about the 2/3 vote and the unanimous vote. Rich corrected me on that. That comes after, and all those calculations all come at the end of the budgeting cycle based on what you choose. You can, so ignore these. Those will be calculated at the end, but I doubt, that would go into these numbers as if the city council chooses to set up basically a much higher rate than what we're using, than I would expect you would. So please just ignore these, the third and the fourth bullets. I didn't need to run those calculations for this meeting. The other thing I wanted to point out, and this will be the fifth bullet. We can set the proposed property tax rate at any of the higher rates and come back down as we go through the budgeting process. So you can start at 10, if and come all the way down to the rollback rate or even lower. But what we can't do is make a decision that sets a lower rate, and then as we go through the budgeting process moving forward after the 4th of August, you can't increase the rate that you're going to consider. And so that's why we're setting the maximum millage rate for this budgeting cycle. We can only go down with what we choose today, or what the council chooses today. You can't go up. Really, because the county's going to announce that, do that truth and millage announcement in mid-August based on the decision that the council makes today. And then the last document that I put in your packets, and I've already alluded to it, is the spreadsheet. All I did was, in case you wanted to understand the effects of different millage rates on the taxable, the property tax revenue for the city in the next fiscal year, that's what this spreadsheet does. It says, considering our property value of $105 million, you go down the next line, the tax rate or the mills, the 10, 9, 8 through 7, 6 all going down. That would be the millage rate used in the calculation. And it shows you underneath the column that says property tax revenue, it shows you what the city would collect or should collect in property tax if you chose those various rates. That won't actually occur because it may be a shocker to you all. Not everybody's going to pay their tax in the coming fiscal year, but that would be the expected income of setting those rates. That is all I had prepared to discuss and try and talk about why we're here. I will stop talking and let the council either ask me questions or have a discussion amongst themselves.
Well, and for the audience that's listening in, the mill rate tax is provided in our CRA fund, and that is for the community redevelopment in our downtown areas, correct?
Madam Mayor, my understanding is actually, two things. The community redevelopment areas, the money that comes back to us, it goes into the trust fund, is a little bit different in my understanding. In this calculation, in the total value of the $105 million in value in the city, that's the entire city to include the community redevelopment area, and the city is expected to get the city property taxes from the entire area. What comes into the community redevelopment areas trust fund from the county is basically, I believe, 95% of what the county would have collected on that property. And so the city still gets our tax or property tax income, and for the CRA, that's a real benefit of the CRA. The county's authorizes 95% of their proceeds from property tax value to come right into the community redevelopment trust fund.
Okay. Thank you. Any questions, comments?
I have some data to add if you want. Okay, so also in front of you is this spreadsheet here. So this is from fiscal years 2021 to 2022 and from 2022 to 2023. And third line from the bottom is the city of Keystone Heights. And you can see in the first fiscal year, 21-22, our millage rate was 4.2901. That was what we were 4 years ago, something like that. 2022-2023, our millage rate did not change. So we were millage rate neutral, meaning the cash dollar value coming to the city was increased because the property values were increased, but the rate that we charged our citizens did not change, but their property tax bills did go up. Okay, then I have another sheet that I gave you, property tax data sheet, this one here. Okay, and the millage rate, last year we went through this, the millage rate at that time was 4.25. So you can say it slightly came down from 2022-2023 to 2023-2024. It came down just a tiny bit. And when we voted last year, we had the option to keep a millage neutral rate again or to do the rollback. And we decided to do the rollback. And the rollback gave us a new millage rate, which is now in effect for this year, of 3.8847. That was approximately $40,000 that we did not get in income. And the percentage of the city income that we budgeted for this year is 30.8% from property taxes. If we had done the millage neutral rate, it would have been 34% of our total budget. And I led the charge last year to do the rollback rate, and my logic was, first of all, we had a surplus. The first time we did the budget, we had $180,000 that we didn't know how we were going to spend. We didn't have a strategic plan. We had, why are we going to ask the citizens for $40,000 more when we have $180,000 we don't know how we're going to spend because we have so much income? And so the council talked about it. Tony was, we need a rainy day fund, so getting extra money is good because you never know when you're going to have less money and you want to kind of have something in the bank, so to speak. By law, though, our expenses and our income must be equal. So you got to say what you're going to do with that money if you have a surplus. In the end, it was a 3-2 vote. It was very close. So now this year, I took, from our budgetary meeting earlier this week, I took the millage neutral rate, which would be 3.8847, and I said, how much would that be of our projected budget, which is $1.878 million. And that would be 21.8%. So the property taxes that we get are about 22% of our total income. If we do the rollback, we would get $31,000 less. And as our city manager said, that would be about $52 per household, or average. You know, larger houses and properties that are worth more pay more, and smaller properties pay less. Okay, and you could easily say that's $4 a month, or $4.33 a month. That's not much money extra to ask the citizens to pay. However, if we were to do rollback, we'd only lose 1.7% of our whole budget, which statistically is in the noise. You can have that much variation from 100 different factors. 1.7% is almost nothing. So one could argue that we could do another year with our citizens where they don't have to pay a dime more in property taxes, and we're not doing bad. We're only down 1.7% of our total budget. And this year so far, we are underspending our budget again. We have surplus this year. So now it comes down to, what do we think? And we don't have to decide that today. I think the mayor probably has a good recommendation for our maximum, and then we need to do more research and think about this more and talk about it more, and a future day, talk about what we're really going to do. All we got to do is the maximum today, but I provide this data to help decision making.
Y'all have any thoughts?
I'm curious now, I'm sorry I was not able to attend the budgeting meeting, but what's causing us to be under budget? Just
The
rough
biggest,
terms.
let's see, we're, expenses, we're, Our operating expenses are $20,000 less. We had expected to spend $75,000 on the lakes. Part of that was supposed to be for the fishing pier, but we only spent $20,000 so far.
Okay.
So that's a $55,000 underspend right there. The city planner, we budgeted $50,000 for the city planner. We've spent less than $16,000 on the city planner. We budgeted, where is that? Total operating expenses, so CPA, postage, city engineers are a big underspend. We set aside $120,000 for them. We only spent $29,000.
So that's about 150 right there.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, just those big items right there.
Check it out.
Yeah.
So-
So I mean, you do the best you can.
Sure.
But we just haven't spent it.
And we were in a really different place this time last year.
Yeah.
I mean, had new staffing, new city manager, new fiscal clerk.
Sure.
A lot of change happened
Everybody's
last
kind
year.
of winging it.
And I think, I think we've always been really conservative on what we were proposed to spend. But we did add additional staffing and some other things, and I think we were trying to be very careful because we were implementing some changes, not including consultants. So-
Totally agree. And I would add that if we have a problem, I don't want to call it a problem, if we have a challenge with the city, it's not money. It's the amount of staff we have, the amount of time they have with all the tasks that we want them to do. And so money is not something I'm worried about. We're good fiscal stewards. It is perhaps if we want to do anything is beefing up with the money, the staff. Because they're
That's
the
where I was
ones.
going, is then what happens to it? What do we think we need? And obviously
We're working
that
on
money
that.
will be
We're
available.
working on the budget. Well, he's actually him and Tiffany are the main drivers. But then the mayor and I on the budget committee, we ask him to tweak this and do that and whatever. And so then they go make changes and then they'll bring forward a budget for the whole council to see.
Right. Now, does that money, that excess, so to speak, roll into the next year? It's not like a federal budget where you lose it.
You really should be targeting through like a capital improvement plan. If we're carrying funds forward, I know for sure in the CRA, we have to budget. If we're rolling forward, I just know because I've read our audits and we need to do it in the future,
Yeah.
is we've got to take any excess, tie it to a project and appropriate it forward or carry it
Perfect.
forward.
Perfect.
I believe the same is true in the city general budget. And I did want to point out, I think part of that, where you see the amended budget I think we built was after we built the first round of the budget for this current fiscal year, we built it budget, what do you call, kind of a balanced budget with the revenue that was coming in. I believe the city built it to expend that revenue. But what we didn't do in the first round was take any of the carry forward that came in out of the previous fiscal year and budget it. And that's why I believe, if the number's right off the top of my head, I think it went from in the amended budget, it went from a budget that had a 1.2 million available to about 1.9 or somewhere in that area. Because we had to go back in and add in that $700,000 and then account for it in the budget. And so, and I think Councilman Lewandowski was trying to say it's not poor budgeting skills where the city engineering was 150. We just had to account for that $700,000 into the budget.
Nobody's crystal ball is perfect.
Right. So,
And what we should do is come September, we should take a really good look at the budget and see how much extra we have and vote to reallocate funding, and most likely that will go toward our capital improvements fund, CIP. There may be other projects that we want to fund or something, but we need to do that for the current fiscal year come September, and I think a lot of cities focus on the next year and forget about the current year. We should not do that.
And some of the fiscal guidance out there is typically what's done appropriately with municipalities, and cities been doing it in the past, because you can see in their bank account, is you can roll those into certificates of deposit with the bank, into CDs. And we have several CDs that are targeted, one's for infrastructure, one's for the general fund, etc. I just don't know that we did that in the transition of the previous fiscal year to this current fiscal year.
So those balances then are, I guess, held in anticipation of pursuing some capital
Correct.
projects that
Yeah.
are in the plan, and
We have
now
more
we can
than
do
we
it.
have more than $1 million in a rainy day fund already. In fact, if I remember correctly, when you add all of the stuff together, the CRA and the cemetery and the cities, we have like $3 million in rainy day money with all of our accounts.
I think one part of that,
Well-
you're about right, I think part of that is the current fiscal year operating budget. I want to say it's more like 2 would be rainy day, infrastructure CDs, cemetery, I believe. But
Okay.
I think the number's right.
And my numbers are like a year old also, so things have changed.
Oh. Well, somebody out there is going to say, well, then why tax us anything?
Well,
I mean, really.
yeah, you could say that, but we all know that's not what we should do.
I think, and we were having this conversation earlier, you're exactly right. You know, we're in these positions to do what's right for the long term. We're not in these seats to get rich or get popular, but do what's right for the city.
Yeah, and really, at least my impression on with the military tax is improvements citywide for all the things that everyone enjoys. These projects that we're working on are focused on the strategic plan. A lot of this money is going toward those projects. They're not free. And, you know, folks want to have events. They want to see things look pretty. You know, they want road improvements, all these things. And you have to use tax money to do that. The lower you go on this rate, the less money you have to use for those purposes. And I think everyone wins when you try to make it fair and equal to as many people as you can, but also that everyone can enjoy the benefits of that. I mean, I feel lucky that we have, I mean, there's some cities that have tons of money to do, like several $1 million to do these things, but we don't, because we only have like 1,500 citizens or less, and a very small space to do that with. So we're just trying to get the biggest bang for the buck with the most reasonable look at how that gets done and the most inexpensive way to get it done, but to get it done well. And I think that's certainly all of us want to try to do that.
That benefits everybody, and you know, it brings in business, revenue, and so on as well.
Yes, yes.
It attracts new businesses.
Success
People come and they
breeds
go,
success,
wow,
yep.
this is a cute little place. I think I'd like to bring something here.
It's a balancing act.
Yep.
Because you want to spend the money, make sure your roads are good and everything looks good. But at the same time, if you have high property taxes, that discourages people from coming in.
Right.
So it's a balancing act.
To your point, the difference between one of these rates was like $4 a month. My cost to fill up a tank varies that much, and I don't travel less,
Right.
as a consequence. So
Yes. No, you're right.
it's hard to get excited about.
I was even
Those
thinking
kinds of
about
numbers.
that. I was thinking, as long as we stay close to what we're at, it really doesn't matter. And our budget's going to be so close. There is a question here about perception. What do you want the people of the town to think about us? And are we good stewards of their money? And so, but you know what? I can argue it either way. If we go with the millage neutral, I can argue how we're being good stewards that way. And if we go to the rollback rate, I can argue how we're being good stewards that way. But I don't think it matters. I think the city will be just fine either way. I think we're in a good spot. We really are.
and again, I'm sorry I couldn't make that meeting. I think that's when I was in the hospital.
No, it's
No,
okay.
no, you weren't expected.
Yeah, the
We're
budget-
we're the ones on the committee.
Yeah,
Okay.
that was last week we had that meeting, so that's fine.
You budget in increases, in salaries and so on?
Yeah,
All
yeah,
that's-
he does, yeah.
All that's in there?
Uh-huh.
Okay. One of the things that struck me as, I guess, in running for this office, as well as learning more about the city, in the meantime, we've talked about this, 1,500 residents. We serve in the surrounding area, I think you said 14,000 people. And just, I walked around the beach one time, big crowd, balls flying around everywhere, and dogs yipping and kids splashing and so on. I didn't meet one person that said they live in this city. So obviously the point is what we do and spend money on facilities and activities and bathrooms and whatever benefits a much larger community than just our city. Again, that's a good thing. It brings in,
We get sales tax revenue.
selling goals and whatnot, and that's
Yeah.
all good. And it's good to be a lively community no matter where those dissidents come from. And success breeds success. I'd like to see, I think we can do better with some of the, like maintaining the bathrooms and whatever, and I don't know, that's not an easy job.
Right.
God bless them. But there's some facilities we could improve and so on, and I'm sure that's in the plan as well.
So one thing the mayor and I talked about with Mr. Booth was going to the county and making the argument that we are the county's representatives in this part of the county. And our footprint benefits thousands of county residents that are not in the city. And that the county should be helping us financially so that we can help the county residents. And so he knows that. He said already he was going to engage the county manager, I think it was.
Yes, sir.
And so we are thinking the same.
Awesome.
We are all thinking the
Yeah,
same.
because it'd be ridiculous to put up a fence and charge people.
Well, we have
to
started
get in
to do
and
that.
out.
I mean, the use of the pavilion, for example.
Yeah.
And
But even that charge is pretty nominal.
It is, but I can't tell you how many citizens who are residents say, what do I get as a benefit because I pay property taxes here? And the answer was at that time, I couldn't say a darn thing. I said one thing, you get say. You get to vote for us up here. That's the only thing they got that was different. Everything else is the exact same. And so I think our citizens deserve a little from that.
Yeah, I think we're constantly talking about things that we could identify that's just for them. But, we have to remember 32656 also feeds what we have here, the restaurants, any of the businesses that are here, they come here and use those resources instead of going to somewhere else.
Sure.
So we still benefit, and so do our residents benefit from that. And it just continues, and the big benefit they have to me is that their property values are continuing to rise. Even though we're that little small spot in the southern end of Clay County, people want to be here, they want to live here. And it's a very special place because we only have so much real estate. So when those properties do come available, especially on the water, and with the lakes coming back, property values are going to continue to rise, and that's their investment is into this charming community that we are going to make sure does not change that image. And, we'll continue to explore, I think, things that citizens that vote have some things like Dan pushed the whole thing with the pavilion, which I thought was a great idea. We just don't have those types of things to offer, really, that I'm aware of, tangible things like that. And so, I continue to watch other cities, like little things that they might do to give citizens, that are voting citizens in the community. But it's just something we'll continue to work on.
I think there's a lot, and Jamie and I were talking about this earlier as well. I think we've got a lot of good news stories to tell. I don't know how and how many different ways we can put that good news out there, but, to your point, Dan, I couldn't
We're working on
believe
that.
Good.
We got some stuff
Working
rolling
on
on that.
that.
Good deal.
I think, and I was talking with Bo about this today, this is a terrific week for the city of Keystone Heights.
Absolutely.
I mean, I was driving in on Tuesday or Wednesday morning, and I came past the cemetery, and our team was out there mowing ahead of a short notice funeral, just to make sure that the cemetery looked nice. And then kept going a little further in town and went on Sunrise and drove past, and the pickleball court's being resurfaced, and they
All right.
pressure washed it. Today, the first leveling coat's on it. Thanks to Bo's efforts over a long period of time. Kept driving into town, and there was another one of our public works team out with the inmates out cleaning up on Nightingale Street. Kept going into town, and the mural that the Heritage Commission and Wendy spearheaded through is taking off. And you come driving through town, and you can see on some of the side streets where the public works team were cutting back vegetation to open up our alleyways. I mean, there's just a lot going on in the town. You can't throw a stone without seeing a very small team having a major impact.
Awesome.
But it's a big week. But that big week takes, gosh, I don't want to know how long Bo's been trying to get to win on a pickleball court. A year
A lot of work.
or more.
Yeah.
And so
We're doing well, it's free, but it's worthwhile and it's a benefit. And people will see it.
If I could, in the interest of keeping the meeting short, ask the mayor what you think our maximum should be?
I believe our maximum should stay at what it is with the neutral rate would be our maximum, which is the 3.8847, or as Jenny mentions, 3.9.
Yeah.
I feel like, when we sit here and talk about all the analysis with the data, we're still looking really, really good, whether we went down a little or we stay where we are, compared to everyone around us. And I think with the value that we get, it's just not, like you said, what, $4 per household or something?
Per month.
Per month or something like that. So that's just what my recommendation is gonna be. And we did talk a lot about this at our budget meeting, and we are in good shape. So, and I think this is certainly something that the citizens could appreciate, that it didn't go up. Because there are some cities that are going up. And I'm really thankful to say that we're in a position to make a choice. And a lot of them are making it because they don't want to make it go up, they don't have a choice.
Kick the can down the road far enough.
Well, it's just being,
So I believe since this is not an official meeting, that we can do this by consensus.
yes,
So there's no vote required. I support the mayor doing a village neutral as our maximum. What say you?
I agree. That's what I was, if we had to vote, that's what I was gonna do.
Yeah.
Or make a motion, I was actually.
Okay. All right.
there's
Concur.
votes. Concur?
Concur.
All right.
Okay.
Roll for it.
I've got the guidance. We'll move out and we keep you updated as we go through the budgeting
Appreciate that.
cycle. Madam Mayor, you asked me before we close to update the council on recent DOGE, State of Florida Department of Government Efficiency inquiry. Broadly, around the 10th of July, we received a DOGE request to fill out a spreadsheet. It asked what were our top 10 revenue sources, some general information about the city and population, and then it asked in another portion of the spreadsheet for us to take those top 10 revenue sources and show how we've expensed those revenues over. Nice for us was just the previous fiscal year, if I'm right, fiscal year 22, 23? 23, 24. And so we just basically took what we had, looked at the columns that the DOGE requested and filled that out, went back and forth, made sure we had it accurate. DOGE wanted us to look at, by revenue source, how did we spend it? In general, most of our funds come in, go into our general fund, and we spend it. So to be able to respond in a timely manner, we just responded out of one budget, a line item out of the general fund. We said how we spent along the columns that they asked for. We will, and there, as I've been going through this budgeting process, I've learned that certain revenue sources come with certain requirements. Typically, if it comes from the gas tax, generally from what I've seen, there's a requirement to spend it on transportation infrastructure, along the roads, the sideways, the street signs, painting, etc. I have no concern that the city has not been spending the appropriate amount of money on those. But we'll look to make sure if we have future requests that we're set up in a way that we could answer a response to a query like that. If you received so much in that particular revenue source, how did you expend it? If it is, if there's caveats to how it is to be spent. The majority of the revenue sources that we get in are generally just go to the general fund, and then the city council decides how to spend it in the budget. Some of them just require us to make sure that they are targeted, and we'll be ready to do that in the future. So, did that cover everything you
Yeah,
wanted to?
I appreciate that, and it's just mainly for the audience hearing. There's been an initiative, as probably reading on social media, set forth by the governor, and he has this gentleman who's leading that charge to overlook every single city in the state of Florida and the criteria. And a lot of it's based on your total budget, I believe, if I remember correctly, size, or maybe it's size of the community, citizens, I can't remember. It was pretty, I mean, ours wasn't quite as bad as some others because of size.
I think 10 million was a break point. They wanted less data from
Yes.
municipalities under $10 million in revenue.
Yes, and, you know, I 100% approve, support this effort. I think it's keeping everyone honest. I believe we've all been very honest, including our previous folks who've sat here and run our city. But I think it's just another set of eyes. And I just want to make sure our citizens know that we're good. We have nothing to hide. We're following everything they've asked us. Additionally, that gentleman is going to be presenting a workshop at Florida League of Cities meeting, which a lot of us are going to be attending. And it'll be kind of good to get his input along with other folks in the room asking questions, specifics and all. So just that we're all doing what we've been asked to do. And I think we're doing a good job at it. That's it. Anything